This is the Minnesota Wild. Last year, after firing their head coach mid-season, they missed the playoffs by 11 points and finished 20th in the NHL. For a team that has been the living embodiment of average or below for years, almost everyone was expecting more of the same this season. But this year has been a complete surprise. An MVP caliber start for their superstar Kaprizov, combined with outstanding defensive metrics, has this team tied for first in the NHL while leading the Western Conference. Not a lot of people saw this coming. And right now, the Wild have become a problem for all 31 other NHL teams on any given night. And when you take a look at how, that might be something that may not change anytime soon. Now, for years, the Minnesota Wild have been in the mushy middle. Ask any Wild fan and they'll tell you they have nightmares of Patrick Kane. They've never been nearly good enough to contend and not nearly bad enough to suck and get a lottery pick. But what has been a consistent positive for them over the last few years is Kaprizov. The superstar left winger has scored 40-plus goals for 3 years in a row and is one of the most dynamic playmakers in the game. He just doesn't get much love because, well, he's on Minnesota. And on a team where he's never really had a slam dunk first line center, he's put up well over a point per game and is at the core of Minnesota's offense. However, this year, he's taken it to a whole other level by being among the league lead in points. The more impressive fact is that he leads all players in even strength scoring with 32 points. Generating offense when even strength is a lot more difficult, simply because there's less space to attack. So the very best offensive players like Kaprizov do their damage through their timing and awareness. In the offensive zone, Minnesota plays a 2-1-2 structure. It's pretty self-explanatory when you look at it, but you got two forwards in deep and the high man as the F3 and your D occupy the points. Now what the 2-1-2 does for most teams is it allows them to work the offensive triangle down low for options. Place a player like Kaprizov in this system and he's frequently working off of his line mates to create off the cycle and work the triangle. This play here against Florida, he is constantly finding that soft spot in Panthers coverage. The original pass is bobbled, but then Minnesota slips into this 2-1-2. And as you can see, Kaprizov thrives in these offensive triangles and give and goes. As soon as he puts it down low to Zuccarello, he attacks the only pocket of space available in between these two checks. The rest is incredible edge work and vision from Kaprizov to set up the goal. It's this same structure that allows him to make absurd no-look passes and plays like this. And while it might just seem like pure luck, it's really Kaprizov being familiar with the system and knowing where his teammates should be. Kaprizov, as the high F3 here, knows that coming out of the goal line, the far forward in Zuccarello will likely be in the area he wants to throw this puck. Sure enough, he's there for the tap-in. To have a superstar talent like Kaprizov is a treat, but having the right systems in place so that he can maximize his skill set is really the most important component of getting the most out of your player and your team as a whole. Now, in the modern NHL, we know it's not just enough to work the cycle down low and rely on your forwards to create offense. All 5 players need to get in the mix, and the Wild do this incredibly well to create havoc for teams in their own end. Here against Philly, watch Kaprizov become a dog on the forecheck, win a puck battle, and then Minnesota again falls into that 2-1-2. Kaprizov sends it to the point for Brock Faber, and here's where Minnesota adds some flair. Both players end up playing a little bit of pitch and catch. Kaprizov climbs up to the point while Faber activates into the slot. That causes a moment of confusion for Philly on who has who, and Kaprizov sends it net front for a perfect Faber tip-in. In pretty much all scenarios in the offensive zone, Minnesota encourages all 5 players to play this sort of positionless style of hockey that creates confusion for opposing teams. And this isn't just the superstars either. Even a lunch pail defender like Jacob Middleton is encouraged to activate on these types of plays. And although this is against a strong defensive team like Winnipeg, they still have difficulties defending this style when executed properly. Last year, Nashville was damn good at this style of play. This year, well, we don't talk about this year for Nashville. However, Minnesota's bread and butter has been their defensive game. With them being first in the NHL in goals against and second in 5-on-5 team defense, it is extremely hard to penetrate the wall that Minnesota creates. In their own zone, Minnesota is one of the few teams who play full man-on-man defense no matter where the puck is. The last few Stanley Cup winners have used a hybrid system, which has a box +1 when the puck is down low, and then flex out to a man-on-man when the puck is up high. Minnesota likes to stay aggressive in pretty much every situation, so they stay man-on-man almost all the time. Man-on-man takes a ton of communication to play, but when played properly, it can be suffocating while also creating offensive opportunities. Once again, against a damn good team in Winnipeg, every Wild player stays aggressive in their pressure while being locked onto a man. Winnipeg is forced to keep the entire play on the perimeter, and when they try and get on the interior, the Wild D is right there to block the shot. The beauty of man-on-man is that when it's executed the way the Wild are doing it, there's just no immediate play that can be made without instant pressure. Special players and high offensive teams will be able to expose it if they can beat their man. But to a man, Minnesota is playing incredible defense as of right now. Now, the connecting piece that pulls it all together for the Wild is how it translates into offense. Often their defense will force a turnover, which presents a rush chance the other way. Here is a perfect example of cohesion as a defensive pairing. The Penguins have a possible 4-on-2 here, but Middleton does a fantastic job at angling off the play and cutting off the offensive space to virtually in half. That makes his partner's life a whole lot easier. The Penguins puck carrier falls right into the trap by giving it to his teammate on his same side. Then the skating and gap control of Faber just snuffs this bad boy out completely, and look, what do you know? Turnover at the offensive blue line, and it's our boy Kaprizov there to jump all over it on the counterattack. The result, of course, is Minnesota goal, and yet another point for Kirill Kaprizov. The Wild and their D aren't shy to jump up in the rush either. Here, Tampa almost does a good job at shutting this down in the neutral zone with some good structure. However, Brodin activates on the far side to give his player an outlet and continue the rush. A subtle tap to his wing just to continue the play, and he drives down the middle to open up this lane to Kaprizov. Yet again, a 5-man offense creates another Kaprizov opportunity, and he's there to hammer it home. When you put guys like Brodin and Faber on the ice together, they are amongst the best in the NHL in terms of expected goals percentage. When you have a defenseman like Jake Middleton leading the NHL in plus-minus, it just goes to show you how well Minnesota is playing when even strength. Finally, the piece that puts it all together is Filip Gustavsson. Being the leader in goals against and amongst the top in every other goalie category, he has been brilliant at hiding any defensive mistakes that Minnesota has had. This right here is a shining example of Minnesota slipping up on their man-on-man coverage. Rossi's late to his guy, Kaprizov gets puck-focused, and this Duck defenseman is coming through the chute untouched. But Gustavsson makes a massive stop. He anticipates the play, beats the pass, and is able to set his feet before the shot even arrives. Having the strong defensive structure that Minnesota possesses makes life easier for Gustavsson, but you still need to have your goalie to make the big stop. Gustavsson is doing that on the regular, and Minnesota is on fire because of it. And when you put all this together, you get a Minnesota team that has taken the league by storm. One of the league's strongest defensive teams, led by a potential MVP winner, has become an unexpected problem for the rest of the league. And if they can keep it up, they may just be the team to beat out of the West.